So you've heard about the tuner, you're excited about the tuner, but you shoot Fuji, you shoot Panasonic, you shoot Blackmagic. Well, good news. The Modulate tuners are now compatible with all of these cameras. All you have to do is a simple mount swap. So you can buy the tuners in E or RF mount, and then you can swap out for an L or an X. So Blackmagic users, Fuji users, Panasonic users can now take advantage of really our remarkable optical technology found in the tuner. Here's a video to show you how to change it out. Now in the video, I'm gonna put on some latex gloves because my fingers tend to be dirty from things I'm doing around the lab. It is not necessary. It's sort of a nice to have. If your finger accidentally touches the glass, it's just good not to leave a big fingerprint on it. So gloves are optional, but something that I use when I'm disassembling a Modulate tuner. So I'm going to show you how to change the mount on the Module 8 PL to mirrorless tuners. We're going to do it today on one of our L3s. We can change mounts from the original E or RF. We can also use an L mount, which is marked right on the mount, or we can use a Fuji X mount. If you have a collimator, or if you're a lens tech or know a lens tech, we also supply a shim kit. This is a very high quality shim kit from Top Care Laser Work, and it's a 5 shim kit made especially for the tuners. So you're gonna need a screwdriver in order to take off the rear mount. What I'm gonna do here, as you can see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 screws. I'm actually changing an RF mount here. So I'm going to loosen these 4 screws. I suggest doing something like putting them in the lens cap because they tend to bounce around. So you're going to get these 4 screws out and be careful lifting this off because there's shims underneath and there's also a little compression O-ring. So just sort of get these tabs here and you sort of pull that off. You're going to see some stuff got left behind. First thing you got to do is make sure that there's no shims stuck to the inside of this mount because they're important. Now, you can see that some stuff got disheveled here. You see, these are the big factory shims, and they have these notches that align to these screws. You could also see that this rubber O-ring just sort of hanging out there. So you got to put this shim back there by aligning it to its screws, and you have to lay that shim around the periphery. You'll know if you forget to put that O-ring back because you won't really be able to turn the ring on the tuner because that sort of is what allows the ring to turn by putting compression on the mount. So I'm going to actually change this out to the L mount, and it's not an exact hole match because we actually have multiple holes here so that you're not using the same holes over and over and you wear them out. So when you take your L mount here, you're going to see you have these 2 larger holes that are going to correspond to these 2 reference screws. And you'll be able to see that, for example, this reference screw and this screw hole are close. So that's the orientation you should be in. If you were trying to align this screw pinhole, you would see that you wouldn't have a way to align 4 screws to actually attach the mount. So I'm going to set this guy here. You want to align these 2 holes. And you want to get that in. It might click in. You hear that sort of clicking in. You want to sort of put pressure all the way around. Make sure that's seated firmly. While you have it down, it's a good time to check the rotation of the tuner. And if it feels like it did before, then you're good. If it doesn't move, then you probably either have that O-ring seated improperly or it's actually sitting next to you. And now, all you have to do is put the screws back in. Suggest putting these in one at a time, but not screwing them all the way in. Just use a tiny bit of pressure. And you can see that the hole pattern for each mount might be a little bit different because, again, we're trying to not have you use the same screw inputs on every mount so that you end up stripping it out. So you'll see that the L has kind of an interesting pattern. So there's 1, 2, 3, and this 4th one here. And put that in and tighten these down. And then sort of once they're all in and tight, and you want to go to sort of one at a time. So you make this one tight, come to this one, make it tight, a little bit tighter, go to this one, sort of snug it in, go to this one, snug it in, and now give it a good tight, just like a little 1/8 of a turn tight. You want to keep it really snug. tight without stripping, and tight. So now we've changed the PL mount L3 to an L mount. Again, if you have a Lens Tech or you have a collimator, you might want to go in there and shim, or even a regular E mount or RF mount tuner, you can always use a shim kit to get a more accurate shimming. We shim at the factory on a 50 millimeter Sigma lens to infinity on a collimator. But that's how you do it. Remember, your lens cap no longer fits. You're going to have to use your L mount rear cap, and you are done. That is how to change the mount on your Module 8 PL to mirrorless tuners.